Chapter 13, author's note. 13 has always been my lucky number, my favorite number, and this book ends with this chapter. End of author's note. Take action now or never. If you don't take action to begin your quantum leap within 21 hours after finishing this book, you never will. Author's note, this is a quote by me, and it has stood me in good stead all my 24 years of coaching. End of author's note. If you've read me this far, you've had a damn good dose of Dan. We talked about creating your personal foundation for success by thinking yourself out of the box of conventional wisdom. You will recall that I told you conventional wisdom is almost always wrong. I'm talking here about doofus wisdom, not the expert opinion of people who have achieved success. You will know from experience that you can't talk about your goals and aspirations with your business peers, your friends, neighbors, or even family because they're all mirrored in conventional wisdom. They also have a loser mentality. The only advice they'll give you is you can't do it, or quizzical look and a good luck, pal. Now you know you can. You also know you have to get comfortable with making decisions by realizing that every decision is not a Sophie's choice, and nobody is going to die if you screw up. You have to take risks too, understanding that failure is only learning opportunity, not a social disease. Risk means you're not taking a chance, you're giving yourself a chance for super success. There is absolutely not the slightest hope that you will succeed by sitting smack inside the middle of your comfort zone. I guarantee that. The more mistakes you make, the more action you're taking toward achieving your final goal. Action is the key. Author's note, unless you're in the life-death business, and we have had physicians, medical doctors, and surgeons come through over the years, nothing you're going to do is going to cause anybody their life. For those of you that are in that kind of business, take note. I'm sure you know how to handle it. End of author's note. You know that you must focus on the ends, not the means. Think macro and big picture, executing a good plan right now, to paraphrase Patton, instead of a perfect plan next week or never. As an entrepreneur, you've got to think big, not only for yourself, but for those you take along with you. Your dream, and that's what it is, must be big enough for everybody to see. Like the flag at the front of a parade, like a beacon of clarity that cuts through the fog of bullshit. You must have passion and be obsessed with your dream and the values it represents. As we learned from President Ronald Reagan, when values are clear, decisions are easy. Author's note, I was also told that by Roy Disney Jr., the son of Roy Disney, brother of Walt Disney. End of author's note. You know you can't just wake up one morning and be successful any more than you can wake up and play the piano. Seminar gurus who tell you that you can have it all and instantly are lying just as surely as the ads that promise you will be able to play the piano within 10 hours of receiving their course. You have to practice success. Take actions that assume you are successful. Act as if you have no limits to your abilities. Put yourself in risky situations and work your way out. Build your confidence, expand your comfort zone, and all the time visualize your dream down to the smallest detail. The carpet style in your corner office, pictures on the wall. I agree with the strategy voiced by success guru Dennis Waitley. Write down your dreams, keep it in your wallet, and read it every day. Don't just think it, ink it. Find a mentor too, a super successful executive or CEO who has been where you're going. Some of the nation's finest minds are retired from active business and have the time and wisdom they'd love to share with you. Retired successes are national treasures we ignore. Claim one of your own. While you're taking care of all these substantial tasks, you have an image building task as well, to create and feed the perception that you already are who you want to be. Act successful. Dress and travel in the style of your success. Never share your doubts. Like Trump in bankruptcy, keep on smiling and keep on dealing. If you are perceived to be successful, people will want to be associated with you. Author's note. When I wrote this originally, Donald Trump, who I'd met back in the early 90s and late 80s, I had no idea, nor did anybody in the world ever think that he'd be president. He is our current president. He's been in less than a year, but Mr. Trump, now President Trump, has personified many of the QLA methodologies. End of author's note. Start working on your dream team immediately, today. Make the first telephone call the instant you finish this chapter. You'll need first-class accountants, lawyers, bankers, and associates. Why? Because you can't do it alone. Get help and give equity. And don't hire credentials so much as attitude. People with an appetite for adventure. Then lead them on that adventure. Give them responsibility. Enable them to make decisions and mistakes. Pay them, but pay yourself, directors, and team first. I gave you my 11 steps that make the deal. Start with identifying your idea and defining the deal, then investigate thoroughly and continuously throughout the process. Then you make the commitment, establish your critical path, continuously modify as you need to, follow up every step to make sure it's taken, and execute. Forget about Plan B or safety nets, just like the Chinese general who posted the troops where their backs to the river, fight or die. Commit yourself and your people to fight for the deal. Your dream as if there's no tomorrow. If I had to identify one factor which is seriously lacking today, it is guts and that grim, unalterable determination to fight and win. If you are a gutless tree hugger, a new age mystic, or at all touchy-feely, then this path is not for you. This book will have been an individual's aid towards defining what you don't want to be in life, super rich and super successful. Author's note, in this day and age, in September 2017, with me going around the world speaking at universities, and my first university last year was Oxford University, 2016, one thing is undeniable. The snowflakes are gaining in population, and that means two things. Number one, their chances for quantum leaps are slim and none, and slim left town. And two, that means that the universe for us doing deals is that much fucking greater. So take advantage of it. End of author's note. As far as raising capital is concerned, you have more hard information about how to find other people's money and get your banks on it in Chapter 9 and 10. The 98% of the people who ever tiptoed into the bank use it. Nothing you can do in the business suit is more satisfying than to outflank a doofus banker, shake his hand, and take his money. Author's note. We're not taking anything from anybody illegally. It has to be legal, moral, and ethical. But that's just a phrase that I've used for almost 50 years. End of author's note. We also talked about the heart of any quantum leap adventure, equity transactions. This is where the real money is made. You should begin immediately to search for likely acquisition targets. Finally, you now know that unless you plan to hang on to your company, sit right and be buried someday under your mahogany desk, you should begin planning your exit strategy now. There are two main exit strategies. One is to clutch at your heart one day and slump forward, face into your file marked cost reduction targets 2010. The second is to find a great fool to offload your turkey and stagger away with barrel loads of green folding liqueur, and then start again if the mood takes you. You choose. Author's note, nobody falls into their exit basket now. Now they just fall over dead on their laptop or their handheld. End of author's note. With such wealth, a trove of information, you've no reason not to get off your ass or your couch and get moving. Adding to your urgency is that once you finish this final chapter, a proven countdown kicks in. I used to tell my seminar attendees that if they didn't take at least some small action toward making their quantum leaps within 21 days, they never would. I've since come to believe that the take action time is far shorter. Now I'll tell them that if you don't take action within 21 hours, it's almost guaranteed you'll never do anything. Stick this book in your bookshelf with all those other feel-good volumes you wasted money on. Call an accounting firm, call a local banker, use Chapter 9 as a script, at least to set up a practice interview. Call your local newspaper or the nearest metropolitan paper to where you live and ask the business department for the most recent list of financial institutions who are currently begging for a chance to lend you a capital. Do something, for God's sake. Get off your dead ass now. Well, Dan, you may be winning in your mind. It all sounds good, but how do I know what you've said is valid for anyone else but Dan Pena type, a guy with an in-your-face approach to business? Author's note. Yes, I am a super aggressive alpha male, and the kids now come to me from a different demographics. When I first wrote this book, Your First 100 Million, my demographics were roughly 35 years of age to late 40s. In the last 5 or 6 years, my demographics have now changed from teenagers to 35, with an occasional person over 35. As the last seminar that just ended a few days ago, we had kids from 19 to a woman 52. End of author's note. I'm glad you asked such an obvious question. After my seminars, there's always some moron who writes on his critique sheet, how does this apply to me? A lobotomy would be a step in the personal development for people like this. Instead of restating everything I stated so far, I want to introduce you to some of the business people I've worked with over the past few years. In every instance, these people were already successful entrepreneurs, individuals running their own companies and making money. You've already heard one success story, that of Casey Stevenson, the young jewelry mogul in California. Casey passed away too young and too soon. I've always remembered him as a minnow who swallowed the whale. Here are a few more. Candace Knoll, whose Houston-based company has handled the custom accommodation needs of thousands of top executives over the years, never attended the Castle Seminar or, to my best knowledge, any of my other QLA events. Instead, she benefited from QLA through direct personal contact. Back in the 80s, Dan broadened our caliber and scope of service, said Candace, just by requesting many of the same services he is accustomed to receiving in five-star hotels of London. He and his team really expanded our idea of premium hospitality with special requests for cable service, at the time a novelty, advanced telecommunication, and other personal requirements. Inspired and challenged by Dan's expectations, we moved into a custom furnishing of apartments, condos, and homes, and then expanded into residential sales. Author's note, Candace attended my 70th birthday almost exactly 2 years ago. She has sold the business and has moved on to developing real estate projects. And when she sold the business, her business in the oil belt of Houston was the most effective and successful business there was. End of author's note. Or as Deanne Verdier, during the mid-90s, she and her partner George, who happens to be her husband, were already making good money and with Sugarloaf Mountain Works organizing upscale craft shows in the mid-Atlantic states. They were working hard and growing a little each year by every conventional standard. They had no reason to change their thinking and their mode of operations. A year after her dose of Dan, Deanne wrote to me saying, as a direct result of attending your seminar, many changes have taken place. On the cash flow front, we've already found and instituted a way to increase our cash flow $500,000 this year. Since our seminar, we've also added 4 new shows to our next year's schedule, a 50% increase over the number we're doing this year. More than a decade later, I wrote this chapter. The country seemed to be sliding into a recession, but the Sugarloaf Craft Festivals were doing good, measured, as the Verdiers say, by the new good of 2008. They have 10 festivals scheduled for the fall of this year and 8 more already in the works for early 2009. And already their market ranges from New England to New York to Michigan, from Maryland to Delaware, Atlanta, Georgia, for almost 20 shows a year. Deanne points out that Dan's pennyisms are firmly incorporated into their business thinking. Perception is reality, she says. Share your dreams, but never your doubts. So ladies, I'll repeat this pennyism just for you. And I'm sure with Deanne's blessing, act as if you have no limits to your abilities. You can make your quantum leap with your heads down, looking at goals in the dirt. You've got to see clearly that other side of the chasm and have the unbridled confidence to know that the next time your feet touch the ground, it'll be on the other side of the cliff. In addition to acquiring a new and bolder mindset, QLA practitioners come away from my training with a tool kit jammed with tidbits of business wisdom. My longtime hunting partner, Martin Heller, sure as hell agrees. Here's what he says. I have personally applied dozens of the killer ideas of my business, including an e-commerce startup that soared to $80,000 per month turnover in just 8 months, and then to 7-figure total turnover in just 24 months. In another current business venture, in just a few years, we've gone from a company to become one of the leading private healthcare companies in Europe and the UK. We focus on sleep disordered breathing, sleep apnea, a number of the UK and EU exclusive product deals, and license rights in our portfolio. We are now planning larger acquisitions with the build or buy, sell or float focus in mind. Robert, one of my brightest stars I've mentored over the years, is like so many of the super successful who have passed through the castle. Laid off in '97, he wound up washing 18-wheelers on the graveyard shift for a grocery chain. But along the way, he heard me speak and bought some QLA tapes. He says that his success has been built on the ruins of many failures, but he never gave up. A determined entrepreneur, he started his own business in 2002 and became quite successful. Then in 2004, we reconnected the next year. He sold his internet business for what he calls a nice sum. Today he does consulting work and is involved in some project in Asia where he currently lives. Robert has attended several castle seminars. He says the QLA has helped him remove the brakes from his potential. We all have limits on ourselves, and tragically, we also allow others to place them on us. If there is anything I have learned from Dan, is that there should be no limits to our abilities. In the heat of the most difficult battle, with the odds against you, you should go in knowing you will win. I credit Dan with where I am today, and I am where I'll be in the future. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a mentor who pushes you to the place you want to be. Thelma Box thinks of me as an old friend who once urged her to redefine enough for retirement. Actually, Thelma and I have been friends for 30 years. We go back before Great Western and Castle and the seminars. I was just getting into the Texas oil business and stayed at her motel in Graham for months. Dan doesn't understand the word enough, says Thelma. His prodding challenged me to rethink my own definition of enough. As a result, I more than doubled my retirement funds and now run a personal development program called Choices. I want my grandson to look to Dan as a role model and mentor in his life. But most important, I think of Dan as a loyal friend, one who values our friendship regardless of the divergent paths friends often take. He certainly changed my life and it left footprints on my heart forever. Author's note. Thelma's in her mid-80s now. We've known each other for about 35 years. And I still keep in touch with her. She's still running her own program called Choices, but she's winding down. And in fact, I plan on seeing her early next year. End of author's note. Dr. Bernie Schindler should have retired from his chiropractic practice years ago. After all, he was running 12 successful clinics, but instead he met me several years ago, and I told a seminar in Los Angeles. Bernie had heard about Dan Pena, so he made a point to attend and bring 5 of his children. I bought 4 of Dan's books that day, said Bernie, but more importantly, I met a man who inspired me to advance to the next level of business without having to see patients every day. Along the way, I suffered a back injury, kept me in bed virtually every hour of the day. Inactivity and painkillers resulted in serious constipation. I retrieved an anti-constipation from my interning days in the late 50s, taught myself in internet marketing, a sales vehicle that was still in its infancy, and started a new mail order business. Bernie was probably one of the oldest entrepreneurs to come to Scotland for the Castle Seminar, but is also one of the most energetic. I mean, everybody who gets so excited about relieving constipation, you've got to love. Today, I count Bernie as one of my personal friends and a great example of how a passion for your business is good medicine at any age. Tim Cohen is a successful marketing consultant, a recommended marketing resource for IBM business partners, and a certified Google AdWords professional who handles more than 70 clients from his office in Oklahoma. In the late 90s, before he met me, he had a dream to expand his business. In Tim's words, I knew where I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to get there. Dan provided the missing piece of the puzzle. He was the guide who showed me how to make high-velocity decisions with the skill and confidence of a super performer. I heard other experts talk about growing a business, but when I met Dan, I knew he was the real deal. One thing Tim learned was how to talk to bankers and potential investors. When he was ready to open an office in London, he took his associates and to meet some of the city gents. His secret weapon was he learned at the castle how to talk to those people in their own language. His associates were dumbfounded as Tim romanced the bankers into negotiating a sizable loan, then even issued his partners each a Barclays card with enormous limits. I love to hear stories like that. Today, Tim Cohen is an international expert in earning income based not simply on products or promises, but on booking transactions in either of the internet. I work in a pure mediocrity, Tim said recently. I'm judged solely on the statistical results of my applied knowledge. I review about 1,000 websites every day to monitor the performance, but more importantly in my approach is what I do. In fact, I act, as Dan Words, I have no limits to my abilities. Tim found a niche in the internet marketing using a process that is so technical and so esoteric that few, including myself, could probably understand. Yet the methodologies of QLA work in that business environment as they do in every other industry. Doris Primaserio has been operating telephone call centers for more than 36 years, started in the business at age 16. She started her own call center at age 22. Her niche is telephone answering service that handles after-hour calls to and from hospitals and doctors. Her employees are trained to take all types of medical emergency call and speak knowledgeably with callers to reassure them in a time of urgency. Her business was moderately successful when she heard me speak at the Hyatt International Airport in Orlando in 1995. I challenged her to expand her business exponentially by buying and merging with other call center operations around the country. In recent years, Doris has done just that, purchasing and consolidating those acquisitions in her Orlando, Florida headquarters. In fact, less than a year ago, she went international with a call center in the Philippines, employing some 50 agents. In the meantime, she fulfilled one of her longtime dreams by attending the Castle Seminar in early 2008. I love Dan Penyism's, Doris said recently. One of my favorites is investigate before you invest. That's one of that saved me thousands of dollars in purchasing companies that were not as stable or forthright in their reporting as they seemed on the surface. Not long ago, I challenged my son Jared to memorize the first 21 pennyisms. What I didn't tell him was that I would pay him $1,000 for every pennyism he memorized. He learned 15 and kicked himself when I gave him $15,000 instead of $21,000 he could have earned. Pennyisms are that important to me, and I want them to be important in business and his personal life as well. My only regret is that I waited 13 years to attend the castle. I put it on my goal back in 1995. If you are thinking about it or have it on your goal list, don't hesitate. Go to the castle and listen to what Dan Pena, who I call the $400 million man, has to say. The entire castle experience was absolutely incredible. One of the best testimonies I've ever received came from a world-class professional in the field of which I am only beginning. I previously mentioned Ted Nicholas, one of the few other seminar lecturers active today besides Dan Pena that I've recommended hearing. Ted, who spent a week with me in Scotland during the castle experience, said, I think this is the greatest seminar I've ever attended. This information is worth millions of dollars in the right hands. You could go to Harvard or Stanford and never get the practical, hard-hitting information that Dan presented this week. It's often said that if you get one good idea from a seminar, time well spent. I've counted 103 specific notes of ideas I've gotten from the seminar, and I plan to use them. Author's note, Ted is retired now. Ted Nicholas, he is one of the great marketing guys of the last 30 or 40 years. He's a gentleman that taught me that words matter, and not just written words, but spoken words. And he attended my first castle seminar back in 93, 94, and I consider him a good friend. End of author's note. I look for deals everywhere at my seminars where 400 people or more may attend. I conclude my lectures with an invitation. I tell my audiences, established business owners, entry-level entrepreneurs and wannabes, that if they have a project, a deal they think might be interested in, fax me a one-page not 2 pages, but 1 page, single page. I can read that. It's hot or just mush-brain fantasy. If it's hot, I can determine in a heartbeat what it needs to take off to become a multi-million-dollar quantum leap. I no longer extend this offer to people because I only give one seminar now, and it's at the Castle. This century, since 2000, I've only given this seminar. My final words. If you've stuck with me this far, you've passed a doofus test of your own. You're probably a serious individual scratching and clawing your way towards a dream that you may have seemed further away this morning than it did yesterday. You may even unconsciously doing the same wrong things over and over and expecting different results. As I've often said, this is my definition of insanity. You've got a good business that is getting by, paying the bills. You're on the cusp of giving birth to a new venture, but just can't get her going. Or you got a hell of an idea, one you've been tweaking for years, one every expert says will make you rich and famous. But after all this time, it's just an idea. Other people are doing it. You know something is missing in your formula. Maybe that's why you go to all the seminars and buy those books and tapes and tables in the back. So what the hell is the answer? I had a guy who filled out a critique sheet at the end of the recent seminar, and it was like a light of knowledge had just burned right through his eyeballs into his brain. I've been looking for the secret of raising money and building my super success. I found out the secret today. There's no secret. Dan Pena explains why people who I'd never suspect of financial acumen are out there building monster companies and monster deals, while I'm on the sideline trying to figure out how they did it. Now I know. And now you know, and you have no one to blame but yourself if you don't make it happen. Action really is the key to making it big in this world, littered with layabouts and armchair dreamers. Anyone can say they want super success. Anyone can set goals for super success. Anyone can dream of super success, but the rewards come only to those who actually do something, not talk about doing something. I hope I've made up my point. Look at your watch. Your 21 hours have started. Author's note, the book that I've just read, the 13 chapters of, gives you or allows you the ability now to be able to play the entire financial orchestra. Heretofore, you have had just individual tools. Now you have the whole, I hate to say toolbox, but more importantly, you know how to use the different tools as a conductor. I look forward to hearing about your success. Signing off, the $50 billion man, end of author's note.